Have you ever had a friend you grew up with, but slowly started feeling like you were no longer on the same level as them? Not because they changed overnight, but because life started rewarding them just a little faster than you, and without even talking about it, you both started noticing it. That quiet feeling when friendship is still there, but comparison has already entered. This is a story about that kind of friendship. In a quiet farming village, surrounded by tall grasses, dusty paths and fields that changed color with the seasons, two young friends, Eli and Samuel, grew up like brothers bound to the same soil, working side by side since childhood, chasing goats through narrow paths, planting seeds in small family plots, and dreaming beneath wide open skies that felt big enough for both their futures. And for years, nobody in the village separated their names because wherever you saw one, the other was never far behind. But what people didn't notice was that something silent had already begun forming between them long before either of them had words for it. Because friendship can grow in the open, while competition grows in silence. And when they finally inherited small portions of farmland from their families, everything changed slowly, not suddenly, as both young men began building their lives with the same hands that once played together in mud, waking before sunrise, walking barefoot through wet grass, and working the same soil with different hopes. And at first, it was still simple, still pure, still shared. They exchanged seeds, helped each other during planting season, laughed during breaks under mango trees, and believed life was something they were building together. Until one season, the rain favored Samuel's land unexpectedly, and his crops grew thicker, greener, more alive than anyone expected. And slowly the village noticed, first whispers, then praise, then attention. And Samuel's name began to travel through markets and gathering spots like wind through dry grass. "That boy has blessed hands," people said. "He will go far." And Eli smiled at first, genuinely, because that was his friend. But silence has a way of revealing thoughts we don't admit aloud. And at night, Eli began noticing things he never cared about before. How people asked Samuel for advice now, how traders stopped more often at his farm, how laughter seemed to gather around him naturally. And without realizing it, Eli started comparing without permission. Not openly, not proudly, but quietly, in the corners of his mind where truth feels uncomfortable. And soon farming was no longer just farming, it became measurement. Who harvested more, who sold faster, who was spoken about more. And even though they still worked together during the day, something invisible had begun standing between them. And that distance grew heavier one evening when Eli stood alone in his field after a weak harvest, staring at cracked soil under fading sunlight, feeling something he could not explain, not hatred, not anger, but the painful awareness of being left behind by someone you still love. And for the first time, he admitted silently that he was no longer enjoying the land. He was trying to win against it and against Samuel, and that realization sat inside him like a stone, until one day, during market gathering, Samuel announced with excitement that a grain merchant from another town had offered him a partnership, and the village erupted in celebration, laughter, congratulations, pride. But Eli felt something inside him tighten, not because Samuel succeeded, but because the gap between them now had a name. And that night, he left the market early without explanation, walking home under heavy silence. And for the first time, their friendship felt fragile, not broken, just stretched too far. And when Samuel came to visit him days later, confused by the distance, Eli finally spoke what had been building for months, words sharper than he intended, heavier than he meant. "Everything is about you now," he said quietly. "People act like you're the only one moving forward." And Samuel didn't interrupt, didn't defend himself. He just stood there for a long moment before saying softly, "I didn't know I was walking ahead of you. I thought we were still walking together." And that sentence landed between them like something breaking without sound. and after that they stopped speaking. And strangely, Eli expected relief, but instead the silence grew heavier than the competition ever was, until weeks later, while working alone before sunrise, exhausted by his own thoughts, Eli began doing something small without planning it. He stopped asking whether he was ahead or behind, and instead asked one simple question each morning: what does my own field need today? And at first it felt strange, almost pointless, because the mind trained in comparison doesn't like silence, it likes ranking. But he kept repeating it anyway, not perfectly, not consistently, sometimes forgetting, sometimes falling back into old habits, still watching Samuel from a distance, still feeling the sting of comparison return like old pain. But slowly, something changed, not in his farm first, but in his attention, because for the first time he noticed details he had ignored for years. Soil differences, crop timing, small improvements that had nothing to do with others. And while he didn't become better overnight, he became present, and presence slowly softened the weight of competition. And then months later, drought returned to the village, and Samuel's partnership collapsed under loss and uncertainty. And suddenly the same villagers who once praised him began whispering again, proving how quickly attention changes direction. And Eli, standing quietly in his field, finally understood something painful about both life and people, that success and failure are not fixed identities but passing weather. And ego is what makes weather feel like worth. And that evening he walked to Samuel's house, carrying a small basket of food from his harvest, not to fix anything, not to erase the past, but simply to sit. And when they finally sat under the same old tree they once shared without tension, there were no big apologies, no dramatic healing, only silence between two people who had both learned something different from the same pain. And after a long pause, Eli said quietly, "I think I was competing with a friend who was never racing me." And Samuel gave a tired smile, and in that moment neither of them returned to who they were before. But something softer replaced what they had lost, and Eli understood finally that sometimes the heaviest competition is the one nobody speaks about, and sometimes peace doesn't come from winning or losing, but from finally returning to your own life without measuring it against someone else's shadow.